Welcome in, listener. You're listening to a segment from the Slumpbuster podcast with Ju-Ju Dre. Find the full episode on Spotify, iTunes, the Google Play Store, or our YouTube channel. Enjoy. So I bet you thought we were done with baseball headlines for the year. Well, psych! We get to talk some baseball because big thing, close to home for me being out here in Texas. But the Houston Astros found themselves in a bit of scandal this recent week as one of their former players, Mike Fiers, came out with the shocking revelation that the Astros have had a camera out in center field and were stealing signs from opposing pitchers. Now, when you look at this, the Astros in the last few playoffs had been a far inferior road team versus a home team. And then one of the more interesting breakdowns I've seen was someone actually cut footage from a Astros playoff game a few years ago. And you notice a distinct banging every time an off-speed pitch was about to get thrown by the opposing pitcher. Now, counter that to that banging would not commence anytime a fastball was going to get thrown. And like on cue, Evan Gattis, I believe, was the batter, hit an amazing home run on a pitch that should have fooled him by a mile. The pitcher had already built up a decent lead in the count, was beating him with fastballs, and suddenly he could read a changeup like nothing. It definitely causes a lot of interesting speculation. Now, one of the big counters, does it matter? Gamesmanship has been a part of the league for years. People have been trying to steal each other's signs forever, but this has to be on a different level, right? Filming the other team from center field, stealing their signs.
Yeah, I think it's totally unethical, and this is a gigantic scandal. You and I, we talked a little bit before the show, and we've said, hey, here's, some of the other instances where teams have done, a Spygate or something like that. But I think this is almost unprecedented, especially in the finals of whatever your league is, right? So in this case, a World Series possibly where they're stealing people's signs and actually using it in the game. So other times when there's been cheating that has occurred, it's, oh, we stole a playbook from them or something like this. But now you're fully implementing it in the game. And, it's having possibly, even video evidence of positive effects for your team and enabling your team to win. And so I think it's insane. And yes, there's certain gamesmanship. There's always going to be some sort of skirting the line or cheating in any professional sports, because at the end of the day, every team is basically in business to win. There's no team that, given the opportunity, if you said, hey, if you cheat, you'll never get caught, I guarantee almost every team would say, yeah, we would cheat right away. But the fact that they got caught, I'm interested to see what the MLB does.
Yeah, the interesting thing I thought about whenever this came out was if everyone was in on it and all the players knew that this was going on, wouldn't the Astros have expected to be caught eventually? There's literally cameras in everyone's pocket. Everything gets found out eventually. And the MLB, you constantly have players rotating in and out of rosters. Mm-hmm. So when you're Mike Fiers and you go to another team, of course you're going to want to spill the secrets. You have no loyalties to the Astros organization anymore at that point. Did they have to make players sign like non-disclosure agreements for this? Because how are you getting away with this when everyone's in on it?
Mm-hmm. And well, I think that's the thing is, even if you made them sign an NDA, right? Like that's physical evidence that you could show and say like, hey, look, like, and yes, I'm sure there would be some strange, weird legal ramifications for you, but at the same time, like there is whistleblower protection laws. And so in a way, this would be like a whistleblower protection, even though I know we're not talking like politics or business or stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know how they got away with it for so long. And obviously it didn't last that long, right? 2017 was only 2 years ago and it's already coming out.
Yeah, I'm surprised, like seriously, because let's say you implement this at the start of the season, right? You have 6 months in a baseball season, a lot of games, and you're cutting players, you're trading players. Mm-hmm. What loyalty does another player have if they go to another roster not to say, hey, they're stealing signs? Mm-hmm. Be on guard for that. I'd have to analyze and look back at all the transactions that took place in that season to see like what players went to opposing rosters, what players went to specifically AL teams. Was it just certain star players got the like cues to learn the signs, like a lifer, like a Jose Altuve, who, considering he won the MVP that year, his legacy is going to come into question eventually when this like fallout starts to take place. How do you even regulate this level of cheating? And you're right. What does the MLB do now? Because the MLB has a weird history when it comes to gray areas, whether it be steroids, whether it be players cheating in the wrong direction, like cheating to lose to fix the World Series. We literally have a sport where your all-time home run leader and your all-time hits leader are not in your Hall of Fame because they were slightly unethical. If this was college sports, they would have had to vacate the championship already, or there at least would be a huge investigation going on to it, which would eventually result in them vacating a championship. What does vacating a championship really do? Because in a society where we have computers and we all remember the game results, there's photo evidence, video evidence, all this other stuff. We remember who won the World Series. We remember what happened that year. So like taking away a title doesn't really mean that much in the long runs. I'm sure it did, but before there was all this like evidence to document it, you just were relying on people's word of mouth on who was the champion in a given year.
Mm-hmm.
But now, it just feels like a slap on the wrist if they did that. Keep in mind, this is still all speculation, albeit it's on good evidence. I think the only realistic thing you could do is honestly like tell the Astros, hey, you're not getting drafted for the next 5 first rounds or something. Baseball draft is also a little weird. It doesn't have the biggest impact, but maybe even come up with something stricter than that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Is the thing when it comes to professional sports, even if they do vacate the title, everybody's still going to say, well, whoever it is that they played in 2017 still lost, right? And everybody's going to remember, no, you guys lost to the Astros, even if the Astros are not the official champs. And it's not like, okay, we're going to go and run it back, right? Like if there's a no contest in the UFC or like in an MMA fight in general, you could say, hey, there was a no contest. Somebody got poked in the eye or something. We had to stop the fight. We can always run it back. There's no way you can run it back to that exact moment and take those exact teams and say, hey, we're going to play it again. And so vacating the title, like you said, doesn't really do a whole lot when it comes to professional sports. The other thing is they've already made the revenue and the profit off of winning that title. They sold their world championship shirts. They've got the fans buying a bunch of more gear already from it. They've already got what they accomplished. So if you were to say, well, you guys have to vacate the title, it's like, okay, thanks. Like we still sold a bunch of jerseys. We still sold a bunch of stuff. We sold out all our tickets. We don't really care about, having an asterisk next to one of our titles. So I think you're exactly right. What I would do if I'm the MLB is one, I'm going to fine them a bunch of money. And I don't know what the biggest fine in MLB history is, but I would fine them a lot of money because I think that's what's really going to hurt them is, hey, you guys made money off of this, off your winning, and, you cheated. So now we're going to take some of that money back. And then, like you said, the draft picks, but I don't know how significant the MLB draft is. I don't pay a whole lot of attention, right? Like if you're in the NBA, a few first round draft picks could be your whole future. If you're in the MLB, I don't know if it's as big of an impact, but that's what I would do.
I think perhaps maybe a thing you also consider is suspending any players that had any knowledge or were involved in the scandal.
And front office executives, right? GMs, stuff like that. Scouts, even.
Some of the largest suspensions you have for example, PED suspensions, you've seen that total up to 100 plus games, 50 plus games. I'm trying to actually look for that exact number as far as monetary fines to the MLB. Man, it's a heck of a story. I'm interested to see how it plays out because the last time baseball had a controversy this big, it actually went to Congress. The whole PED scandal with the Mitchell report and everything like that. This is equivalent in terms of the scale. Let's say you're the MLB and you're fining the Astros organization multi-millions of dollars and you're the Astros. Well, you have to fight it out in court at least. You got to give it an honest try. And when you consider the amount of money both sides would have, this could seriously get up there to even steps of Washington, D.C., which would kind of be ironic given the Astros lost to a team in D.C. this year. Make it 0-2 against the city of Washington, D.C.
Yeah. So something else that I just thought about too is, when there was the whole Donald Sterling situation. Now, granted, this wasn't about cheating. This was about Donald Sterling was just an awful human being, right? When it came down to the Clippers, do you think that the league could even say, hey, we're going to force you to sell your team, right? So we're going to fine you. We might take away some draft picks, but you're also going to be forced to sell the team.
I think that's entirely possible. I think that's actually a really good theory to think about because you have a guy, for example, actually, Mark Cuban, who's in that same state, has been trying to buy a baseball team for years. I think this is probably his in, when you have the Houston Astros or organization potentially up for grabs. And I think that would be an appropriate solution because if they're pulling off this level of cheating, you have to figure it goes all the way to the top. There's no way the owner doesn't have knowledge of it.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. Is everybody had to have known that this is the way that they're going to win, right? Like this doesn't just stay with, oh, it's just the coach that implemented this, because the coach is going to tell somebody in the front office and they're going to tell the owner eventually. Like the owner's got to know that this is going on. There's no way that the owner can say, oh, I had no idea that this is how we were winning our games. Maybe, but I think it's such a slim chance. And so, yeah, I would even say that maybe the league explores that, and that, hey, we're gonna get rid of the owner, right, and force him to sell.
Well, I mean, you're kind of close to this a little bit. You're a bit of a LA fan. Dodgers, who lost that World Series in 2017, especially that was a crazy World Series if you remember it. Game 7, homers all over the place. I don't know how Rob Manfred would handle this situation. He's a bit of an interesting commissioner. Obviously, we talked about the juice ball situation. He's all about whatever is best for the fan interest. Controversy is interesting sometimes, too. We talked about it earlier. Sometimes bad headlines are good headlines.
Yeah, it definitely could be, right? Like it's sort of, again, the whole WWE and UFC needs a villain, right? The Houston Astros are kind of that villain that they're sort of playing. But at the same time, if you're not strict enough and it looks like you're not being strict, then I think you really do lose fans, and that everybody's like, oh no, every game is rigged now, or hey, this commissioner is soft, he doesn't want to do anything. And so I think you do have to send some type of strict message, some type of strong message, just so everybody knows that, no, I'm for real, that cheating is not allowed. But at the same time, I think you're almost happy that this story comes out, right? A lot more people are going to be talking baseball now in November than probably they ever have.
It's very coincidental that this happened 100 years after the 1919 Chicago Black Sox scandal, where 8 players decided to forfeit the World Series, so go the opposite direction to get a bigger gamble payout. And a lot of those guys got banned from baseball for life.